New this year, we will be offering a digital badge for attendees. Um, Folks that register and attend the full workshop will receive a digital badge recognizing their professional development and scholarship writing skills. It'll be delivered to your email in the fall term, so please look out for that. Um, Without further ado, let's begin. And you're welcome to start recording now, Kai. All right, so once again, welcome to the SHRC and OGS Summer Scholarship Workshop. This workshop is intended for doctoral applicants to the SHRC and OGS programs in this cycle. The application cycle has already begun, and people that are applying this year will be applying to hold their award in the following academic year. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, I would like to introduce the team that is with us here today. So my name is Judy C. I'm one of the research officers here at the Faculty of Graduate Studies. And now I'm going to pass the mic off to Ricolette.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Ricolette Freckleton. I'm the Associate Director for Research, Scholarship, and Awards here at the Faculty of Graduate Studies. Naruse?
Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Naruse. I am one of the other research officers with the Faculty of Graduate Studies.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Kai, and I am the Scholarship and Award Coordinator, and I will hand it over back to Judy.
Great, thank you, Kai. And now I would like to introduce the last member of the Scholarships and Awards team. It is my great pleasure to introduce everybody to Dr. Cheryl Van Daalen-Smith, who is the Associate Dean here at the Faculty of Graduate Studies in the Academic Portfolio. Cheryl?
Thanks, Judy. Thanks, everyone. And wow, look at all you students here at 9 o'clock in the morning, Ontario time, wanting to come and learn about how to succeed in writing scholarship applications. I'm super proud of you. So, yeah, I'm Cheryl, one of the associate deans, and on behalf of the Dean of the Faculty of Grad Studies, welcome. Good on you for wanting to try this skill. This is a skill. And how cool is it that you're going to get a digital badge towards professional development? So listen, along that lines, why don't you try and get some more digital badges over the year? Keep track of your email, don't delete them, and see what other kind of opportunities are coming up that you can partake in. It looks cool on LinkedIn, looks great on your CV, and really helps you keep moving forward. The other thing I wanted to say is don't do this alone. You have, I hope, a supervisor, possibly a supervisory committee that should be wrapping around and supporting you in writing these applications. So schedule a meeting when we hang up today with them if you don't have one already to talk with your supervisor about what you want to apply for, talk through your maybe an early draft, and then work with them to polish it. This is why we've invited some faculty who have been very successful in supporting students to write and succeed in securing grants and scholarships. So with that, I know I've gone on a bit too long, dear Judy, so turn back to our very fine team and take notes, everyone, but do know that the recording will be made available. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. Okay, so let's get started. So this is going to be a breakdown of our morning today. We are right on time. We're going to have a FGS speaking session going over the SHRC scholarship opportunity for about 20 minutes. And then we are very lucky to have a faculty guest speaker, Dr. MacLennan, who will speak on her perspective as a reviewer of these scholarship applications. We will have a short 15-minute break at 10:20. And at 10:35, we will have two student panelist speakers who are current SHRC CGRSD award holders who will talk about their experience in the scholarship application process. At around 11:15, we will have a 10-minute discussion about wellness strategies in the competition application cycle. And then we will open the floor up to a question and answer period for the FGS Scholarships and Awards team. Hmm. So now we will go through the SHRC program. So this is a general overview of the SHRC program. At the doctoral level, each funding agency has its own application portal. SHRC stands for the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council. It is a branch of the federal government, and the scholarships are funded through the federal government. To be eligible to apply for this program, you can be domestic or international. Everybody in this room is a current York University student. So if you are a current York University international student, you are eligible to apply. For doctoral applicants, you must not have registered for more than 36 months full-time equivalent studies by the December 31st of the application year. So by December 31st, you could not have been registered for more than 36 months. If it's more than 36 months, then you are not eligible to apply. Domestic applicants must hold the award. Domestic applicants can hold the award in Canadian or international institutions. However, international applicants can only hold the award in Canadian institutions. Candidates can only submit one application per year, so they can only apply under either SHRC, NSERC, or CIHR. If you're here, you must know that you're applying under SHRC, but if you're unsure or if you're doing multidisciplinary research, feel free to visit this page to just confirm the agency that you're submitting your application under. As a York University student, you must adhere to the York University deadline of October 8th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time to submit your application. Late applications will not be reviewed or considered at all, and it is your responsibility to adhere to institutional deadlines. Also, select the deadline that corresponds to the scholarship program that you are applying for. If you happen to be applying under the master's program, you'd follow the master's deadline. However, if you are a master's student applying to hold the award as a doctoral student, you would be responsible for adhering to the doctoral deadline. The scholarship value is $40,000 per year for up to 3 years for a maximum total value of $120,000. The deadline again is October 8th, 2026, 11:59 Eastern. There are 2 levels of review. There's an institutional review and there is a national review portion. The institutional results will be communicated to applicants directly via email in November, and the final funding results from the national funding body will be communicated directly to students via email, which will link you to SHRC's intranet system in spring of 2027. Students apply directly through the SHRC web-based form, and students at York University are responsible to familiarizing themselves with the CGRSD and SHRC web pages, as well as the York University SHRC web pages, to understand how to submit an application through the funding agency that in order for it to reach York University. This is a very, very brief overview of the components that comprise of a complete SHRC application. Dr. Anne MacLennan will go through this in greater detail, so I will just breeze through it. A lot of this information is self-explanatory, and instructions on how to complete the fields are provided within the portal. So be sure to open a different browser and review the instructions while you're completing the application. You will need to complete an application profile, so profile on you, the program information, the areas of study, your research proposal, which is a maximum of 2 pages, bibliography/citations, which is a max of 5 pages. There is a portion for you to include information about diversity in research. I'll go through that in greater detail. There are transcripts, and there is an optional inclusion for allowable inclusions for any special circumstances. It's optional, max 1 page. Your research contributions, max 2 pages. And then there is a portion for these justifications, and I will go through that in a couple of slides. And at the end, you'll be asked to enter emails and demographic information about your referees. They will be invited to submit confidential reference letters on your behalf, and it will be appended to your application. These are important websites for you to review while you're completing your application, before you're completing your application. Please become familiar with them, because understanding these rules and these guidelines and these processes are critical to your success. So going into the justifications and supplements, SSHRC has supplemental funds to support certain target research areas. Some of them are jointly funded and some of them are supplements. So when we say jointly funded, it means that there may be funds from elsewhere supplementing a SSHRC scholarship. So we've got research on national defense and security, sports participation research, and MyTax. They're supplemental, those are joint initiatives. For MyTax, it's just a checkbox, check it off, and it is to focus on professionalizing your degree, knowledge mobilization, and putting research into the industry. Supplements are additional funds to support target research areas. So we've got the Eileen D. Ross Fellowship, which is poverty-related research in sociology, and Canadian Studies called the Queen's Fellowship. Oh, so you are given up to 1 page to include justification for these targeted research areas if it applies to you. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. This is the evaluation criteria for your SSHRC and OGS scholarship application. It's broken down in 2 areas: research ability and potential for 50%, and relevant experience and achievements obtained within and beyond academia. Reviewers are responsible for evaluating your proposals under this criteria, so please be sure you understand it to see where you will get points. Reviewers are going to be looking at the quality of the research proposal, demonstration of a potential to carry out proposed research relative to the stage of study, lived experience, and knowledge systems, quality of research contributions, publications, presentations, creative outputs, knowledge translation outputs, community products or other outputs, how you integrate EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusion in your research as applicable. And for those of you that are doing SSHRC research, it is applicable. So please be sure to dedicate care and attention when completing this portion. Enthusiasm for research, originality, initiative, and relevant community involvement, and the ability to communicate clearly in written and oral formats. Reviewers will be judging your relevant experience and achievements obtained within and beyond academia through relevant training, such as academic training, lived experience, and traditional teachings, past awards, scholarships, and distinctions, your transcripts and your other academic records, and your professional, academic, and extracurricular activities. SSHRC and the funding agencies recognize that there are underrepresentation in certain demographic populations. So candidates are invited to complete their self-identification survey. Please complete it so that the tri-agency and the institution can use the data to form equitable policies. And if these the questions do apply to you, please complete them fully, and please consent to allow the tri-agency to review your application for funding purposes according to the demographic information that you supply. The federal government may ask you to complete self-identification attestation forms, and will ask to have your application considered for other funding programs. The Government of Canada is also providing additional funds to support Black scholars and researchers. Each agency has an additional funding allocation for 10 awards. So that's a total of 30 awards. Unfortunately, though, international candidates are not eligible for the Black Scholars Funding Initiative. EDI and research design is very important at the federal government. The federal government recognizes that EDI considerations in research methodology, research questions, study design, theoretical framework, methodology, data collection, sources cited, analysis and interpretation increases the rigor of the research itself. So if you are in this workshop, you are doing social studies research, so it is highly, highly suggested that you complete this section and outline how diversity, equity, and inclusion affected your research design or process. There is a source here that outlines how to specifically integrate EDI in your application. Now I'm going to pass it on to Narus, who will go through the next funding program. Narus?
Thanks so much, Judy. So now that we've covered the requirements and the details for SHRC, we're going to move on to the Ontario Graduate Scholarship, OGS, and the QE2 Scholarship in Science and Technology, and that is the Queen Elizabeth II Scholarship, very briefly. Next slide. So the OGS and the QE2 is just another avenue of funding. It's offered at the provincial level, and it's open to full-time master's students and doctoral students across a wide range of disciplines. So both the OGS and the QE2 are merit-based awards, and they're jointly funded by the province of Ontario along with the institution that's offering the scholarship. And for both the awards, the value is the same. So it's $15,000 for 1 year. And these awards are considered non-renewable, meaning that eligible students would need to reapply every year that they're eligible. And you'd also be required to hold the award for at least 2 consecutive terms, typically over a period of up to 3 terms. So 1 year of funding is what's offered here. In terms of eligibility, there are a few distinctions between the 2 programs. So the OGS is open to both domestic and international students, and it's available across all academic disciplines, while the QE2, on the other hand, is limited to domestic students enrolled in science and engineering fields. So at York, both awards are adjudicated together in a single application review process. So if you're applying to the OGS and you're eligible for the QE2 based on your field of study and your registration status, you'll automatically be considered for the QE2. So the application requirements are the same. But for eligibility, both of the scholarships require that students have a minimum of an A- average in each of the last 2 years of study, full-time enrollment in an eligible graduate program, and for doctoral students, you must be in PhD year 3 or less as of December 2026 in order to be eligible. Next slide. Luckily at York, one of the great things is that the adjudication process for the OGS and the Tri-Council scholarships that Judy just discussed are integrated. So this means that students who are applying for the Tri-Council doctoral scholarship can be considered for both the Tri-Council competition and the OGS competition through the same application package. So as a result, the deadlines are aligned. So the OGS deadline will correspond with the Tri-Council deadline. So if you're applying for a SHRC doctoral award, you can be considered for the OGS. Your Tri-Council application will serve as a primary application for both competitions. So we've outlined here the process in order for that to happen. So the first step would be to submit your Tri-Council application through the appropriate agency portal by the agency deadline. And then the second step is to then complete York University's required Tri-Council cover sheet. So for York graduate students who are currently enrolled in a graduate program, you would submit your cover sheet using the Financial Aid Awards and Scholarship Portal, also referred to as FAS, and you would log in and submit this cover sheet using your Passport York credentials. If you are a prospective student, so this includes current undergraduate students as well, you would have to complete a separate cover sheet that's hosted on Mockform, and that link is also indicated on the slide, and we've shared a copy of the slides with you in the chat. What's important for these cover sheets is that you don't need to upload your full application materials again. FGS will already have access to your application and reference letters through the agency portal. The purpose of the cover sheet is primarily administrative, so it allows us to match your agency application with your student record and helps to facilitate the institutional review process, adjudication, and awards administration, including payment afterwards if you are successful. These instructions are posted on our OGS website. We've also created a student guide called How to Submit a Tri-Council and/or OGS Scholarship Application at York University, and we strongly recommend that you review this as you prepare your applications just to make sure you're not missing any steps. But the key takeaway here is that if you're applying to Tri-Council, so if you're applying to the SHRC award, your SHRC application will be used to assess your eligibility for OGS, provided you submit the required cover sheet. Next slide. Now, if you are planning on applying to OGS only, so that is you are not applying to any of the Tri-Council competitions, you would submit and complete the 2027-2028 OGS and QE2 only application mock form. And in this case, we recommend that you prepare all of your application materials in advance so that you can complete or have a complete application package and submit by the deadline. So here you would need to submit transcripts from all of your undergraduate and graduate institutions that you've attended. You'd also need to arrange for 2 referees to complete and submit reference assessments by the internal deadline. Keep in mind that incomplete applications, as Judy mentioned, will not be considered. So if your application is missing a reference assessment, it will not be considered, unfortunately, because it would be incomplete. Unlike the integrated Tri-Council OGS process mentioned on the previous slide, OGS-only applicants have to submit all of their application materials directly through the OGS-only application form. And this includes several components which you can see listed here. So your research proposal, bibliography, professional experience, details about your academic background, transcripts, and those 2 reference letters. So one important point to note too is that for OGS-only applications, you should be following the Tri-Council pagination and formatting guidelines. So for those of you here who are in the social sciences, your OGS application should follow the same guidelines as indicated in the SHRC competition. So for example, your research proposal would be limited to 2 pages. You would have an additional 5 pages for bibliography and so on. And again, these details are posted on our website. Next slide. All right, we'll keep this very quick. I know our guest speakers will be covering this in detail, but just some general tips for you to help you strengthen your applications. Start early. This applies not only to the competitions that we've described today, but also any other major scholarship or award application. It almost always takes longer than expected. So make sure you give yourself enough time because you are going to be drafting a couple of different drafts of your research proposal. You'll be having to reach out to your referees to make sure that they're submitting and completing the reference assessment. So these things do take time. So start early and make sure that you are completing your application well in advance of the deadline. We recommend at least 3 days before the deadline, but the more of a buffer you give yourself, the better. And again, carefully review the application requirements before you begin. So make sure you keep open the guidelines on a separate sheet as you are preparing your application and submitting to make sure you're not missing any important steps. Next slide. And as we've mentioned a couple times, one of the important components of these major scholarship applications, including the SHRC Doctoral and the OGS, is a research proposal or research statement. The format may vary across competitions, but most successful research statements do address these 4 core elements. So your research question and objectives, relevant literature or scholarly context, your proposed methodology or approach, and the potential impact or significance of the work. So your research proposal should, in theory, be covering the what, the where, the why, the how, and the so what of your project. And if you're able to do that, then you will have covered those core elements of a strong research statement. And we also have some details about how to prepare a strong research proposal on our website. There's a student guide for you, which we'll link in this presentation later on. Next slide. Transcripts are also very important. We've mentioned this a couple of times as a core element of your scholarship applications. So as part of your SHRC doctoral application or your OGS only application, you must submit official transcripts from all undergraduate and graduate institutions that you've attended, and students are responsible for obtaining and submitting these as part of the application. So because you would be applying through York as York students, you would have to include your York U transcript, and it should show your fall 2026 registration, even if you don't have any grades. And this serves to confirm your enrollment and registration status for the agencies to double check your eligibility. And you can order your transcripts directly from the registrar's office, and the link to do so is here. The earlier you order them, the better. Again, students will be requesting transcripts at the same time. It's a very busy season, scholarship season with deadlines. So make sure you're ordering them as soon as you are registered for the fall term so that you can get those transcripts early. Next slide. And then reference letters, again, another very important component of your application. These scholarship applications do require 2 reference assessments. So our biggest piece of advice is to contact these referees early, ideally at least 3 weeks before the deadlines. But I would say the more lead time, the better. Remember that referees also don't automatically get a copy of your application materials. So when you are reaching out to them, be sure to provide your draft proposal or your research statement, a copy of your CV, and basically any other information that will help them write you a very strong and detailed assessment. We also have a guide for referees, which we'll link in the next slide. But here you can also see some guides from SSHRC, which will give some details to your referees of what type of information they should be including in their letters. So these guides linked here, you can share with your referees when you are reaching out to them. Next slide. Now, what if your plans change? Oftentimes we do get this question. If your project changes by the time you receive the award, don't worry, because most of these scholarship agencies and funders do understand and even expect that your project is going to change and evolve over time as you continue with your studies. So we recommend that at the time of your application, when you're preparing your documents and getting ready to submit, just present your research proposal as a snapshot of your current plan as clearly as possible. Next slide. And then some resources for you that you might find helpful as you are preparing your applications. The first 2 guides are developed by FGS, and they provide practical advice on writing a strong research proposal as well as supporting reference letters. We've also included a short NSERC video on how to make your scholarship application stand out. And then I also want to highlight some available resources through York University. York has now offered a brand new graduate student certificate in decolonization, equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility, or DEDIA. This certificate is fully online, it's free to York graduate students, and it's designed to help students and researchers develop knowledge and skills related to how to integrate DEDIA principles into your research, into your academic work, and into your professional practice. So this is a really good place for you to start thinking about those diversity, equity, and inclusion principles that Judy mentioned earlier. So highly recommend. And again, you can do this at your own time. It's self-paced learning, completely online and virtual. Next slide. And that brings us to the end of our FGS portion of this workshop. So next we'll be handing things over to our faculty presenter. And we're very grateful to be joined by Dr. MacLennan, Associate Professor in the Department of Communication and Media Studies. Dr. MacLennan actually served as a chair of a merit review committee for the Canada Graduate Research Scholarship Doctoral program in the last cycle. And so she's reviewed applications from students like yourselves on behalf of the National Adjudication Committee. So she'll be able to share a lot of her insights with us. So thank you for joining us today, Professor. We're excited for you to share your thoughts and some tips for our students. I will hand it over to you. And students, if you do have any questions for Dr. MacLennan throughout her presentation, please drop them in the Q&A.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anne MacLennan, and as you were just told, I've been sitting on the merit committees when the SSHRC applications go to Ottawa. In fact, for the last 3 years, I've been the chair of the committee that I belong to. So you have to keep in mind there are many, many committees that review. Somebody being the chair is not the chair of all the applications across the country, but in fact, in the area I'm chairing, there are 3 committees for that one section. So it does go according to the numbers. I'm really happy to be here today. I'm hoping to give you as many tips as possible and highlighting the kinds of things that you need to do to win the scholarship. What I want everyone to do is feel encouraged to always apply, not to say, oh, I don't have all those things, but to work towards them. right? A first-year student is not going to have the same as a third-year student, but you'll see in the forms there is sort of a provision for that, and they will see them. And whether you win or not, and some people did not win last year, it's always good practice to start to do it again this year. I'm glad to see you here today because this is the kind of thing that you should start now. So I'm going to share my slides with you to get started. And keep rolling until a small question period. So I want you just as happy at the end of this process as the students here. But we're going to move along. And one of the things that we're going to do is to really go through the SHRC form. Because I'm going through the SHRC form does not mean I'm ignoring OGS or the Queen Elizabeth. As you just heard in last presentation, there's an additional form internal to York. Follow the steps there, and you will see that the priorities and very much for OGS parallels that of SHRC. So if you go through the materials and look at the priorities here, you will have a lot of the ideas that you need to get an OGS. The rules have changed. Last year, they changed dramatically, and SHRC was open to international students. SHRC is higher, is $40,000 a year, but only for 3 years. And because of that, I don't want anyone to miss out. They are also entitled to OGS. So everyone's who's entitled to apply for SHRC should also apply for OGS. And people who have reached are entering their third year this year, and the fourth year next year should apply for OGS. Okay. I'm going to repeat some of the things, but a little emphasis. So first steps, start today. Just take a half hour, 20 minutes, 3 hours, and start to do things like order your transcripts. Although people think, oh, this is not a project that you do on the last day before it's due. You need to order the transcripts now. Some universities take longer than others, and you don't want to run into that at the last minute, and that is the reason that you don't send in your application. Download the SHRC form and answer as much as you can. You certainly can put in your name, you can put in different things, but be mindful of the form and its format. When you go in, there's a login site, and there's 2 elements you have to fill in, a separate CV and then the form. To get the form, if you go a little bit lower down, and I didn't put that in here, you need to look for the form. It'll be there. I think it's at the top. It was on the top. I downloaded one, so I had a sample for you. And you should start to fill in as much as you can. You can revise, so that's not a problem, but always save. So it might not be visible on your screen, but whenever you fill things in, go to the very bottom on the left, not quite in the corner. It says save, always save, or you'll wonder, where is it all going? Why am I filling it in and it doesn't work? Those are little glitchy things that it's just a matter of getting used to these kinds of forms. You can fill in the SHRC CV and put in as many things as you want to or you need to. Jobs, previous awards, your previous degrees, your current job, if you have a TA-ship or an RA-ship or a GA-ship, all of those kinds of things. If you've had a show, research creation work, different kinds of elements of your past career are really important to how you win this. So think about that when you look at the CV, because when it arrives for the reviewers in Ottawa and also here, it's all one big document. The CV gets joined to your SHRC application. So don't believe that, oh, it's off to the side, they're never going to look at it. It's one document that gets generated, and they'll be able to see all of this. Start the draft statement. Don't do it on the form because you can't. You have to upload a document anyways. But start your draft statement right away. Think about, what are you going to say? What are the important elements? Boom. Second, once you have a little bit of a draft, or even if you have last year's draft, use those materials, maybe your transcripts. Those don't have to be official. All of those kinds of elements to send to your potential reference letter writers. As soon as they say yes, put their names in and the email. It's the last piece of the form, and we'll get there, but they immediately get a link. And you can, I always make my students do this, write to them and say, I just filled in the form. You should have received a link. Not in an insecure way. They will receive the link. I like to get that because I'll get lots of links and I get a lot of email. And that way there's a marker they can look for when you sent that message and say, oh, the SHRC link on that day, because it'll be 1 minute before. Take the time right now to add to your resume. That doesn't mean you're filling in more things for the CV since your last application. You could do something before October 1st. You could do a book review. You could apply for a conference and have a potential forthcoming presentation by the time you hit October 1st. You could finish something that's been sitting on the side. You could start something new. There's a lot of different things that you can do. You could join a research team because that's a valuable experience for this application. Okay, here's one of the pages of the application. If you look on your left, you will see all the elements that you have to fill in. I've skipped a few of them because I'm going to talk about them very quickly. I put a little emphasis on this one. The application profile, you can very quickly put in the title of your research. If you don't have a title, make one up. It's important to have a title. Then choosing the committee, which I've highlighted, a lot of the boxes are drop down. Committees are important. And if you notice here, there are a lot of different departments grouped together. That's what I wanted you to see. Do not try to say, oh, well, I'm in sociology, but maybe I'll have better luck in history. Go with your discipline. You'll have more strength in the other things you do in the discipline. If you've hopped disciplines, I probably would go with the discipline that you're in now for your PhD. The other point that I want you to see very much by pulling out this pull down box is that when SHRC says, right, so that people in different disciplines can understand, they mean it. The group that I work in, if you see it, it's 7023, it's anthropologies, it's classics, it's archives, it's communication and media studies, it's criminologies, it's demography, it's folklore, it's geography, it's library, it's library science, sociology, regional studies, and environmental studies. All your reviewers, if you're applying to that committee, will be professors from all those disciplines. So if you have particular theorists that you're name dropping and putting in there, they might not carry the same weight as they do in your own discipline. So be sure that those kinds of name droppy things or jargon that you're using are contextualized or maybe written so that somebody in another discipline can quickly feel that this is important. I'm not going to say understand because of course the professors reading can understand what you're saying, but names will not have the same significance. Everybody doesn't read the same thing. I'm going to skip over all of those extra fellowships. You should always write the page and explain why you are relevant to it. My tags, a lot of the sports, a lot of those things have quite a few awards. I will point out that the Queen's Fellowship and the Eileen D. Ross Fellowship awards won. Never twist your whole proposal to fit those extras. Those are supplements. Those are not priorities. Do not change your proposal around because you think, oh, I have more of a chance. Okay, I'm going to run through these. Self-identification, Indigenous, all kinds. Those are very important. I would always identify. Do not assume because you've identified there are extra places and you will get it by virtue of your own identity. You also need to read the policy and make sure you're doing research that fits into there and that you're fitting into the priorities and the policies set up. That's where people do not get the awards when they're in the range of getting the award. Okay. The next slide is kind of probably my most awkward slide, but I wanted it to be like that because I used to do this for years and years and do it on dry erase board or a chalkboard. This is important. This is not the only important element of your application. It's very important. It's usually very important at the first level of evaluation internally. It's also important in Ottawa, but it's not the only thing in Ottawa. Everyone in Ottawa who gets that far has a good proposal, or a very good, or an excellent proposal. Everybody else who's missed the boat, they probably didn't get to Ottawa. And if you got to Ottawa because of some ranking internally and you don't make the cut, it'll show very strongly there. So this is important. I'm going to emphasize a few things, and I'm going to tell you to look at the instructions. This back here, and this is why I'm doing my own slides, because I like to go forward and backwards. See my little red box? There's a thing you can click at every page and look at instructions, and it will have just the section of instructions that apply to this part of the application. They have a long document introducing you to this application, but they also have an instructions document, which is so important that you really should read. Go back to that, and it tells you what to put in your document. You have to put in a PDF here. It's easy. You choose the file, you upload it and attach it. Follow all the instructions. The maximum 2 pages, 8.5 by 11. The maximum size you shouldn't exceed. And then at the bottom, the body has to be Times Roman 12 point, 3/4 inch margins, and no more than 6 lines of type per inch, which if you're shoving in more type, it'll be very obvious. And the people reading these will be unhappy. Clearly state your level of graduate study. Level of graduate study, your thesis, who your supervisor is, an outline, research projects, all of these things sound like just a small list. They are very important. You are getting evaluated on all of these. The others are specialty items where you're identifying in different groups and research creation and particular details. In the second part, they don't apply to everybody. But if they apply to you, obviously connect. Here's the awkward slide. Think about this as a template. Some research proposals are completely full of theory and you would have no idea what it's about. In the first section, I'm giving you 5 interesting sentences. Put your title. I know it's in the first page of the application. Put your title. Have a thesis statement or argument or a question. Go for it. Don't just have a topic. Then break it down. What are you going to do? Why you're going to do it? And you can put in your level of study, your supervisor, and your stage of research there. I think it a little bit drowns that nice paragraph, but that paragraph has to be interesting. People might be reading 70 of these. I was trying to think this morning how many I've read over the years because I was thinking it was hundreds, but internally, externally, I've certainly read more than 1,000, and I don't want to think about it as thousands, but certainly more than 1,000. The ones that win are very, very clear. There are elements that are in here, and this is important. They want your research questions or objectives. It doesn't mean you have to sound like a science lab project from grade 8. You can do it in a way that's more fitting with the style of research you do, but these elements have to be there. You also have to contextualize your research, right? Just because you know what your topic is doesn't mean everyone in all the disciplines know. So if it has a background to it, if it's a law, why was it passed? When was it passed? If it's something sociological, urban renewal, cities, problems, infrastructure problems, why? Census data, populations. If it has a historical element, try to reinforce what this is. And by doing this, you're showing why it's important. Here's where you put your theoretical in the next box. It's not the beginning. All of the different theories where you're placing your research, and we know what it is, and that you talk about in your graduate seminars, go here. Be very careful that you're not doing it in a way that is not accessible to people, maybe in your discipline, but not in your field. People who are definitely part of the literature will know the names, but others will not. So it's important to cite people and show where you are, but make sure that it's grouped with some sentences that show where you're going. Next page on the other side in the second column, you certainly could be continuing. You might have a little bit longer to explain the context. You might need to take a little bit more with your theory. Methods and samples. A lot of people skip this because they're afraid of this. I think you should do a quick workshop in this to be able to do this, or speak to your supervisor, or if you have an option to take a methods class, or you did last year, reinforce what you're doing. This is where you can use jargon. A non-random proposal sample is very impressive, more than I will select some students at the university level. You need to say that it's a non-random proposal sample of university students attending universities now from this state to this state. You need to be specific here. You need to be putting it through as if it's research you would be paid for, right? If you were pitching this to do it for a company or for a university or for a nonprofit, it should be technical. It should say the names of the methods. It also should provide rationales. Why is this going to deliver? That doesn't mean go in a methods book and say, interviews are useful because they provide a sense of material that you do not know already. Why don't we know it? That's where you connect it to your research. Then significance, contributions to knowledge, answering more of what you've brought together here, and a big wrap up. Sometimes people put an extra thing in here, like why they've come to York. York is the ideal place of study for me because I'll be using the Clara Thomas archives in the Scott Library as well as the Ontario archives for the province that are located on campus. This is a ideal location because my supervisor or the cluster of researchers in such and such a group or in this organized unit will support your work. This is a place where you can mention your supervisor, committee members, just to tie it up and bring it together, right? But yes, a conclusion. What will you deliver? What will your research be? Not just a special project of your own, but what will it be? What can it do? Okay, I'm going to move along a little bit more quickly. Writing style. Writing style is important, and I don't think enough people pay attention to it. People have to read many, many of these. Do not just write something boring. Write with authority. Write as if you know you're the winner. Don't use filler. Don't go in order to and all those extra phrases. Don't use tentative language. You hope to do it. You're exploring. Demonstrate, argue, analyze, examine. Remember, you're winning this. Write as if you could have filled this with double the material and that you're editing down. It has a denseness that's important too. Write your statement many times. I do believe that our Associate Dean, Cheryl, said you should be working with this with your supervisor. Show it to your supervisor. I would say 5 is good, maybe 7. 7's a lucky number. Write it, get feedback, write it again. Rewrite it over and over. That's why write a rough today. Just like even not a finished rough, write a paragraph. Do not listen exclusively to other students. They have one experience. They won an award. It happened to them because you will get hints because something that worked for them might work for you, but it's not the only experience. Do not follow that as your rule. Sometimes people are very authoritative. They got the idea about the writing. Write in a clear style without jargon. Jargon only applies to your methods, makes you sound like you know what you're doing with the methods. For the rest, you're losing your audience because of the interdisciplinarity of the judging committees or the merit committees. Do not make the mistake of name dropping your favorite theorists. You have to work them into the context, right? So people might not know who that is. Don't just name drop. Put it into something. Make it so that readers from different specialties and disciplines will understand it. And I've emphasized that when I was talking about the template. Don't include links and imagine anyone's going to read it. They don't. The only time they look at links is if you're doing research creation and it goes to your portfolio. There's a few exceptions, and it does say it in the rules. If you're just starting out and it's your first time writing one of these, do a little research. Don't just do this off the top of your head. Find out about theory in your area. Find out about the methodology in your area. Think about what this contributes to knowledge. Think about all of these things. Don't just say, I don't know. Try and figure it out. Spend a little time, at least digitally, in the library. Don't be afraid. Don't be tentative. Just go for it. Don't be shy and say, don't feel unworthy. Everyone here is worthy. This is not usually a place to make personal connections. Maybe if you're writing an autoethnography or research creation, but personal stories tend not to help you. And then the complete your items, that's me talking about do something, do a book review. And I want to get to my slide of why that's important. Write in a formal style. Do not write casually. Read some of the literature in your field. And when you hit research that you really like, look at the way that they write. Are you writing in a similar way? And don't use their blog post or their Substack as your example. Make sure that you put as much as you can into the space. Sometimes examples work. Sometimes it's data. Numbers are good if you need census and comparisons and things like that. Think about that, but they have to be very jammed in. You're not just filling it with space. Create confidence in your work. Make people believe you are the one. You should be the winner. If this is your second, third, or fourth try, fourth for OGS, do not send in the same statement. This is not a lottery ticket you're buying. Document more progress. They talk about what stage you're at. Say, I am finished my coursework. I'm finished my comms. I've submitted my proposal. I've started my data collection. I have my ethics collected. Support your reference letters with more information. Send them your transcripts. Send them your draft. Send them the essay that you wrote for them so that they have it handy and say how wonderful it is in their letter. Because examples really work in those things. Rethink your work. If it didn't win last year, why? Did you write about it clearly? Can you fix that? Are there new things you're doing? Add more research preparedness and experience. This is not part of the statement. We're coming to this. It's one of the big items. Read all the instructions. Maybe again as you edit, because you'll forget what you read. Click all the links because it goes to their policies. Ask questions. Write, revise, write, revise, write, revise. The references and the works cited. Works cited are the name drops in your research proposal. You have a space for that, and you have a space for bibliography. Bibliography is not your works cited. They don't have to be referenced. It's showing that you know the literature in your field. Fill all 5 pages. Single space. Go for it. This allows you also to get a leg up on looking at the literature in your field. It lets you look at the things people are doing, how you might be viewed. It helps. And people who have a double-spaced page and a half do not win. The diversity and other sections. There's other sections related to identity if you're identifying as a racialized or indigenous, other kinds of elements like the supplements. Look at their policies and add relevant points. This is important. I would do the new certificate because that speaks to this. I would. You don't have to, but also you don't have to win. Next, transcripts over and over. Order them today. They take a long time. You have to upload them. You don't want this to be the reason that you didn't do it. Allowable inclusions. Sometimes this is illness, pregnancy leaves. Follow the policy and be careful. Do not overclaim. Do not claim things that people might judge you for. There's a fine line between a disability and a broken fingernail, right? Do not claim things that are in the world, in your world may be large, but in the world of all the applications might not be large. Ask someone, does this sound right? Find out what terms like lived experiences mean. Some students know full well what they mean, but one of my students thought it meant the fact that she was very wealthy and travels all over the world. That is not what they're talking about. This research contributions. This is super important. There was a slide in the previous presentations that showed you 50% for research contributions, 50% for research experience. Your proposal that you've been obsessing over is a subset of this larger part, right? This is often the deciding factor. When all the research proposals are excellent, this is the deciding factor. I've included all the instructions because I do want you to look at them. But this is just by clicking that little red box there, instructions, you will get all of this. It's there. On the left side, it's very fussy about what is peer reviewed and put an R for it and explains it. And it tells you your thesis is not a refereed publication. And it puts all of this, it talks about URLs, it talks about your contribution. If you have co-authors, you need to explain what you did and how much you did. These headings, use them. Refereed contributions, other refereed contributions, non-refereed contributions, forthcoming contribution, creative outputs. There might be another, think about it. This is important. You have 2 pages. You should fill these in. And this is why if you have nothing for this, don't worry, still apply, but maybe you should try to do one of these things. These are all things that are your research preparedness, right? That go with your proposal, that go with your transcripts, all the things you have going in. If you've been part of a book and written a book chapter, if you've done a presentation at a conference that's refereed, if you have an article and then non-refereed, it could be a policy paper, book reviews, all of those are important. Use these headings. Don't do it a different way. If you have nothing in some of these categories, don't use the category, don't put it there, and then just put nothing. Leave it out. Relevant activities. Both sides, both pages, these are in descending order. The more important at the top and the less important. And I emphasize that for relevant experience. Describing your past research experience is important, right? The methods that you've used, the kind of things you've done. If you've done interviews before when you were working for your professor and you're going to do interviews in your own project, it's good to talk about it. If they're detailed interviews, what kinds of people you talk to, what kind of a format, maybe name the project so they get a context. I would write about that. That's important. That gives you points. Participation in professional activities, academic, extracurricular. If you're doing some research outreach as part of working for a professor, those kinds of things count very high. Teaching, mentoring, supervising, all your TA work, those kinds of things. Project management is very good. Research promotion is good. These are starting to decline, and it depends on your research. If you have activist research, obviously civic engagement and community outreach is important. Chairing committees, organizing meetings is important, not as important as where they say describe. Participating in committees, those are all nice. And if you have nothing, you should list those, especially if you're first year, because they see that you're first year because you put that in the research proposal and you counted how many months you have by December. Remember, it's by December. A lot of people have trouble counting the months. So when it says describe, they want more than a sentence. It's not just an entry like in the other one. This is my little summary of those things. This is the difference between a good one and an excellent project. Use the headings provided. If you don't have anything, leave it out. Follow the rules for the R. Don't put in things that you think are. They have the rules there. When it says describe, right in detail. Items that are listed in descending order, that they've done that for you. So you can prioritize. And it starts over on each page. The experience on the second page counts for 50% of your mark. And the other 50 is everything else in this and what you write on that page. So think about that. That's very important. And when we do the marking or the rankings of people, we rank research, contributions, preparedness, and research experience. That's what they rank. So those 2 categories are very important. Your references, please start now, please start now, please start now. Professors have a lot of deadlines. They have lots of work to do. They might miss your email. They might not. Don't feel insecure. Some people have fewer emails. They don't talk to as many people. You cannot press submit until the form is complete. And it is not complete until they submit their letters. They will get a deadline. They will get something that says you only have 2 weeks. Some people might say, if you send it now, if you sent it today, they'll get something that says they have 2 weeks. You can extend the 2 weeks, not a big deal. But you do not want them submitting it on the last day. When you go into the form, it tells you how many on the far right of the form, and it says how many days, hours, minutes. That's until the final award. You have an internal submission date, and you should tell them what it is so that they don't miss the date for you. You can't press submit without their letters. It's not like other applications where the letters often come in after your application. You need that done. Good luck. I hope everybody in the room wins. We can all win. I have time now for questions, and I don't mind answering very picky specific questions or general questions. I'm going to look right now in the chat because I can't read chat and talk at the same time. Well, I don't know if a lot of people can. I can, but then I talk
And
differently.
I'm available to you if you would like for me to address the questions to you and read them out loud for you to answer.
Okay, I'm looking at them. I'm scrolling and scrolling, but you can read me the questions or
Sure.
people can speak. Somebody has their hand up. We like Amanda. She raised her hand.
Hi,
I
good
can't unmute you. There you go.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for the presentation. It's been really helpful. Took lots of notes. I am an Indigenous person who's doing research that includes Indigenous former youth in care. However, my population also includes Black and white and all racialized folks as well. So the previous year, it was submitted for the Indigenous stream.
Last cycle. Thank you for that. So let me introduce them. We will have Sarah Gomez Garcia speak first. They are current, as I mentioned, they are a current SSHRC CJRSD awardee, just awarded this year, and they are a PhD student in environmental studies. So feel free to take it away, Clara.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you to everyone here today. Good morning. It's really nice to be here. My name is Sarah Gomez. I'm a fourth-year student in the Environmental Studies program. And
Sorry, Clara, we can hardly hear you.
oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
It's still muffled.
Oh, let me check it. Sorry, can you hear me?
Much better.
Oh, perfect. So I can do this. So yeah, I'm a fourth-year student in the Environmental Studies program, and I'm awardee for the period of 2026. And yeah, I want to share with you some ideas. Probably there are somehow repetitive with what Professor MacLennan just said, but I think that it's just nice to have it in mind. So I have some general tips and then some tips for some of the documents that you should present. And the first thing is probably a little bit obvious, but you need to read a lot of information. You need to read a lot of forms and the pages, the websites, both from the SSHRC guidelines and the JERC guidelines. So just take your time to read everything and to track your progress with any requirement. So you will have to accomplish at least 4 requirements this year. So there is the research proposal, the contributions, the bibliography, and the transcripts. So keep your track with each thing. And once you have an idea of the process and the requirements, you can look for examples. So many of the programs have somehow some drives or folders, shared folders, where you can find previous applications from your peers, from your colleagues. So take a minute to review other examples. Even in Google, you can Google successfully share applicants, and you can find some documents from other universities too. So you can have time to see what others have done that could help you and give you an idea. Be aware of other workshops. So for instance, in the Faculty of Environmental Studies. Last year, we have a specific workshop for the faculty, and we have the opportunity to make some peer review of our proposals. So be aware of those dates and those workshops. And you can find also the opportunity to read others' proposals and also to receive comments from your peers and colleagues and other professors. So this month, probably this month, August and September, will be full of those kind of workshops. The idea is not that you attend all of them, but at least one. It's very helpful. And then time is very important for writing, but also for asking for comments. So I think that last year, the biggest help that I received was that I asked for help to many professors and I received comments from them. So having more eyes on your proposal is always a good idea, and not only from professors, but also with other students. The people who is in the same process can give you some insights for your work. So ask for help, and this is why time is important, because you are also working with the time of other people. And it's also important to take distance from your proposal. So it's always a nice idea to work 3 or 4 days and then just relax and be away of your proposals on other days, so you can go back or come back with new eyes to what you are writing. So this is why time is very, very important. And also it's important because of the referees letters. You need also to manage that part of the time. About that, the reference, make sure you have all the information. Last year, we received the advice to, for example, providing somehow the draft of the letter. Probably this is too much, but if you have the chance to talk with the people who is giving you the reference letters and let them know what is your work right now, what are you doing right now, what is happening in your research, or what are your experience, anything, any information that you want that they know and they include in your letter, it is important that you communicate to them. And very explicitly, it's not time to be humble. I think that all this process is not the time to be humble and to really believe in yourself and that you have done important things. And I think personally, in the PhD process, probably we are not very good doing these kind of things, and we think that we are not doing many incredible things, but this is not the time to be humble, but just to show you are doing things and those things are interesting and are valuable. And finally, in this part of general tips, familiarize yourself with the websites. There are many websites that you need to be familiar with. So for instance, the FGS website, the first part of the university, and then the SHRC website. You have many forms, you have many formats that you need to reconcile, to upload. So take your time also to know how they work. And also, in my case, I have a little technical issue, but the good thing was I have like 1 week of time, so I could ask for help and everything. So take your time to know the websites and to have some kind of a buffer of time so you can ask for help. And finally, don't give up. Many people apply twice or even 3 times. So if you are here for the 3rd year in a row, it's okay. I think that we are all applying all the time to many bursaries and scholarships. So this is part of the work of being in academy, and don't receiving or don't being successful is not a measure for your work. It's just something that happened, and don't give up. Now, about the research proposal, I think that the most important thing is to have in mind some important questions that you should answer in your proposal. So I just want to share with you some of them. Firstly, why the problem is important, why the problem or your topic of research is relevant. It's relevant now, and it's relevant for this context. Second, have your questions and objectives clear. So what are your questions? What are your goals? That will be really, really clear and in the very top of your proposal. Then when you are working in your literature or in the literature framework, be sure that you are using this part to frame your research. It's not also the space to show that you have read a lot, but to show which literature is accurate and is important for your research right now. So you are coherent with what you have said before. And then in the methodology, how you will conduct your research. In this point, it's also very important to prioritize not the most interesting or most ambitious plan, but the most feasible. What it's possible to do with the time you have, with the resources you have, with the connections you have, and that it's also coherent with the questions and the objectives. So yeah, it's not also the most ambitious thing, but the most feasible thing that you can do with the time that you have. And then it's very important that you have in mind what is your contribution and what is at stake with your project. So what is this important and what is your work or how you are contributing to this topic that is very important and the other people probably are living beside, or that it's a topic that you could keep delving into. And finally, in the section when you are supposed to write about what is the stage of your project, also have in mind that it's not only about what you have done or what are you doing right now, but also the moment to show that you have a supportive supervisor or you have been working with professors or with a group. So also you are able to show that you are being supported, that you have a network who can help you. So for instance, I remember that I wrote about how I've been working in a project with my supervisor that is part of my current project for the PhD. So it's also important to show that you have this support from others that will be also part of your reference letters. So the idea is that at the end, this proposal with all these questions, it's able to answer why your project is important, why now to do it, it's important, why are you the one who should conduct this research, and yeah, why you are the one who deserve this. And then in the personal contributions and the personal part include what have been said by Professor just some minutes ago, include your experience, even outside academia. My experience in outside academia was relevant for my research. So for instance, you have been working in an institution, in a public institution, in an NGO, even in corporate institutions. These also are contributing in some way to your research because they are giving you some skills, because they are giving you some knowledge. So include it if you consider that it's relevant. And also, this could help to the jurists to know that you are able to conduct your research and you have the skills to do so. And then you should, or you're encouraged to include other relevant activities. So that could show you that you are proactive, that you are involved with community, or that you are involved with any other things that you have in your environment. So include, for instance, if you have been part of any group from the university, if you are part of any committee in the university, include all this information as far as it is relevant. And this also help you to show that you have potential for the future. So you are someone who in the future could keep doing something interesting. And finally, I think that it's really important to respect all the formats. In the SHRC website, you will find the margins, the type of font and the size, all of these kind of things that apparently we could not be too strict. The recommendation that I received last year, and that I think is very, very important, just be very aware of all these instructions about the format. And also it's a way that at least in the first moment they open your proposal, they have like an idea that you are in the guidelines. And in this sense, also use spice wisely. Use your words, be wise with the words, the wording that are you using in your writing. And yeah, I think that it's from my side. Probably the most important thing is that you have time and you have the confidence to ask for help to other people, to other professors. Even if you are not the most close to these professors, but they are offering you help, take that help and let other people help you. I think that was part of my success last year. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Clara. And also thank you so much for your particular tips, like Googling past SSHRC successful applications and proposals. Yes, that does work. And there are some applications from different institutions. And it's really helpful to find a proposal that fits right within your area of study to help contextualize how to approach your area of research. Thank you so much, Clara. For attendees that have questions for Clara, please hold off on them. We're going to have our next student panelists speak, and we will have a joint question and answer period for Clara and Laurel after her talk. Laura, I invite you to have your talk. Laurel Green is a SSHRC CGRSD awardee for the 2026 cycle. She's also a GFAD Fellow from 2024. They are a Connected Minds PhD scholarship recipient, PhD student in the Theater, Dance, and Performance Studies program. Thank you, Laurel.
Hi there, everyone. Can you hear me? Awesome. Okay. So yes, my name is Laurel. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm starting year 3 of my PhD in Theater, Dance, and Performance Studies. I am part of AMPD, which stands for the School of Art, Media, Performance, and Design at York University. So I'm a professional artist and a scholar, and as such, I'm undertaking an interdisciplinary research creation doctoral project. My specific field is participatory performance and game design for social transformation. So really working, someone spoke a minute ago about sitting on the precipice of multiple disciplines and how to kind of frame this up as an artist. So I'll talk a bit about that in a moment. And I just want to start by saying that with my background in the arts, I have a lot of experience applying to grants, and I've successfully received a lot of arts funding. But SSHRC was a really unique application with a really different format from what I'm used to. So the entire process, I just want to acknowledge that the entire process is quite particular and, can have a lot of frustrations or bumps in the road along the way. It's really stressful, and there's many parts of the process that feel like they're going to derail you. But I just want to say up front, take a deep breath, reach out for help, and keep going. Because this is a bit of a rite of passage, I think, for PhD students, not just at York, but at universities across Canada. And so you're not alone. is a really important part of all of this process. So at York, I've also received funding through Connected Minds, where I successfully applied to be a PhD trainee. And I just want to give a plug to Connected Minds and say that's a really great interdisciplinary research project that you should also check out. So I applied to SSHRC in 2025 when I was in my second year of PhD, and I was successful getting SSHRC this round on my first attempt. So in first year, I wrote the application section of my SSHRC as part of my AMPD doctoral colloquium. So I got peer feedback, and I really wrestled that first year with whether or not I should apply. And in the end, I decided not to. In second year, I felt more confident about my research topics and way more connected to my research, which led to a much stronger proposal and an overall application. In first year, first semester, I just didn't know enough about how I was going to frame my research. Didn't really have that much confidence that I had in my second year. So I decided to wait. So you know yourself, and if that's a decision that you would make, again, you've got 3 years in which to apply, so you can decide based on your experience and where your research is sitting. I want to thank my peers in the AMPD PhD community. They were all incredibly supportive during the application process. So we organized a peer-led workshop last summer with successful recipients from the department who shared their proposal. And this allowed for a conversation that could get really specific and nuanced in a student-led space. So there were no stupid questions. We helped each other through the submissions process, and we have an AMPD Discord channel that we used for that. So all PhDs are working on SSHRCs at all universities. I encourage you first and foremost to reach out and mobilize your networks within your departments and outside of it. Workshops like this are great, but there's certain questions and certain things that you might feel more comfortable asking other students about. And so I really encourage you to reach out to others in your program. These folks can be your sounding boards. They can help you navigate the technical and administrative elements of the application. Where did you get that form? How do we navigate the referees in the portal? And they can also be readers of your drafts. I had a peer as my first draft reader before I asked my supervisor to do a read through. And this saved myself from my supervisor having to read my first draft. When that feedback first came in from a peer, I was ready for it. And that first reader pointed out some really large issues, including that I'd had my margins wrong and was a whole paragraph over the page limit. So I had the peer read it first, made those big changes, and then was able to send it to my supervisor. When they sent it back, I made a few small tweaks and was able to press send. So that felt great. Reading other sample applications, both from inside and outside your department, is crucial to understanding the format and the expectations of the SSHRC research proposal. Know that others are on their own journey. So really avoid getting swept up in comparing yourself to others, getting swept up in their anxieties. That said, if someone reads your draft, pay it forward and return the favor. So a big tip I have for you today is start early and log in often. Get really familiar and intimate and cozy with the SSHRC portal. Don't let any required components in this application sneak up on you. And don't underestimate how much time, especially the CV portion, can take. It's not a matter of uploading your current CV. You're entering everything into a very specific SSHRC form. This takes time and some creative rejigging, especially if you're like me and you have both creative and academic credits and years of past employment to include. So don't wait until you're ready to submit your application to begin creating your profile. In fact, getting the portal set up and doing things like formatting your CV is a great procrastination activity when you need a break from writing. I'd say for bonus points, and you've heard this said a few times today, but I'll just repeat it, review the SSHRC website, learn about past applications and committees, the info of who gets a scholarship and who's on the national reading committees. It's all publicly disclosed. And this can give you a sense of who's going to read it. You can see professors from across the country. So my committee was 1B, which is Fine Arts and Literature. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. But I'll just say that as someone coming in with a project that, yes, is interdisciplinary, but my department is theater and performance, I really needed to root myself in that committee that would have a basic understanding or a basic appreciation as well and a working knowledge of the arts. Even though I was going to branch into game design, social transformation, human-centered design, all sorts of different things, I really wanted to root it in the arts, and that that was for me because that is the basis of my project and that's what my degree will be in. In terms of referees, identify them early. You want professors familiar with your research, as you've heard today. I included a letter from my supervisor at York and also a professor from another university that I have a long relationship with. That other professor is really familiar with my work, both creative and academic, and I worked with them on a major SSHRC research project in the past. So they made an excellent referee alongside my current York supervisor. Make sure you've reached out to your referees and confirmed them really well in advance, like before September strikes, and talk to them about your project. Make sure you ask them and get confirmation that they're willing to be a reference, because otherwise you'll have to pivot to someone else on your list. Talk to your referee about your project, send them a draft of your project description or your rough notes in advance, not to proofread it, but just to be familiar. Also send them your CV and your research contributions if they aren't super familiar with your background and maybe some of those other pieces that you're bringing into this application outside of academic settings. So SSHRC is going to ask you to input your referee's contact information into the portal. Then they're going to email your referees automatically with an invitation. You can't see what they wrote, but you see whether or not they have submitted, and you'll get that confirmation. As for the research proposal, you've heard it before today as well today, but I'll just reiterate, what is your story? What is the impact of your research? Why are you the person to do this project? And why is this project relevant today? So this proposal tells the committee the story of your research. And as such, it should be as compelling and clear as possible. Before writing mine, I read a lot of other proposals from folks both inside and outside my field, both successful and not. I wanted to familiarize myself with the SSHRC format. I created a bit of a Mad Libs, like a fill in the blank list of prompts drawn from those applications to practice writing out my research objectives, such as my project aims to 1, 2, 3 objectives, or my research breaks new ground by doing X and Y. And this was really helpful as an entry point into the writing when you're sitting there looking at a blank page. Maybe consider drawing out some of those phrases and really try them on and see how it is that you can put your research and your objectives into them. So write your proposal in clear, plain language, avoid discipline-specific jargon, acronyms, and highly technical terms. And if you use them, define them. Your application is going to be reviewed by a member of a multidisciplinary selection committee, so not all of whom are familiar with your area of research. So I did not take for granted that even an arts committee would know what participatory performance, game design, or systems thinking would mean in the context of my research. I'm undertaking a research creation thesis, and so this means that my doctoral project involves both scholarly and artistic methods. So my job was to both define and contextualize what research creation is in SSHRC's terms, and also in my own terms and how they apply to my research. So I included citations that exemplified how I approach research creation. I gave examples of recent projects and I cited sources as precedents for my methodologies. So as opposed to undertaking one creative output, I'm working on a series of research creation experiments, which will comprise my dissertation research. So I broke those down for the committee. And I looked at this both in terms of how those experiments would produce new creative work, but also new ways of working in my field. Approaching the research proposal within the arts, I looked beyond the artistic outputs and I connected my project and its larger impact as a powerful tool for civic engagement and collective action. I framed my project as a step towards repairing the social fabric at the height of a loneliness epidemic that the World Health Organization has reported as an international health crisis with consequences on mental and physical health. And yes, I cited the World Health Organization's report in my application. I considered how my research could be accessed and used broadly across sectors to design games for social change to build collective capacity for healthy and resilient communities. So that's an example of how to go about looking at your research and saying, what's the larger impact that this could have? And how can the methods that I use from within my field be applied to other fields outside of my own? The secret of proposal writing, and this is to quote some of my friends at AMPD, get feedback and obliterate your ego. So for many of us, our proposals are the first pieces of writing we produce aimed at readers who have absolutely no exposure to our work, our methods, our philosophies. These people do not know us. They do not know York necessarily once you get to the national committee. And so do not take for granted that they will understand why you are doing this research, who you are, all of those rich things that make this an interesting story. And so I just want to say a big key to supporting that research statement is, of course, your personal statement and your list of research outputs. So as an artist with years of experience, this section for me was vital to framing how I bring that artistic experience into academia through conference presentations, papers, and guest lectures. But also this is an opportunity for me to contextualize my practice and how I work in both areas. So I looked up how to cite performances, workshops, exhibitions I had been part of, and include them in the research output section. I also drew from my graduate school application to articulate how this is going to inform what kind of researcher I am and to give that sense of my extended networks. So I urge you to consider the questions: how are you a leader in your field? What contributions have you made to your committee? And what about your background is preparing you to do this research at this time? As for the bibliography and the works cited, we don't hear a lot about this section, but consider this a chance to sow seeds for your future self down the line, because you can use this as a basis for your comps reading list, and it's a valuable first pass at your lit review for your thesis. So the reviewers aren't going to check every single citation to ensure you formatted them properly, but they are going to look to see that you've done at least some research and that the texts you're choosing infuse your projects with valuable perspective and a real breadth of perspectives as well. So there's 5 pages allotted for works cited, a bibliography section, both the ones that will be directly cited in your research proposal, and then a beyond lit review, which really I think is good practice to just start thinking about, again, where you're situating your research and what resources might you draw from in the future as well. So ultimately, when I was notified that I was successful at getting a SHRC, I got to see my scores. And I learned that the National Committee ranks applications in 2 areas. So you're getting 2 scores. One is research potential for 50%, and the other 50% is relevant experience and achievements. So when preparing your research, it's not just about that strength of the potential for the research. It's about your experience and achievements that prepare you to do the research, that feasibility piece. So those are the 2 scores that you get coming back. And I was also given some stats. So in the 1B committee that ranked me, fine arts and literature, it's called fine arts, literature brackets, all types. So just to give you an idea, like where would theater sit within there? You know, it's kind of buried, all types. What does that mean? Lots of questions. But again, you can look at who's on these committees and get a sense of what their backgrounds might be. What I saw in my results letter was there were 109 applications in the 1B category. This is the national SHRC level, and 36 awards that were offered. So that's 33%, which means 73 awards were not offered. In the overall pool of applications for last year, there were 2,297 that were adjudicated at the national level with a 45% awards offered rate. And that means a 54% not offered. So York has a quota of applications that they will adjudicate. You'll put your application in that October deadline, I believe it is. By December, you'll find out if you've gone through to the nationals. But York has a quota that they can send through. So that's a fixed amount for all PhD students in every department in York, not just yours, but beyond. If you are successful at getting through to the nationals level, this is that overall pool I'm talking about. And you can see that many deserving students that apply do not get a SHRC. So if you don't get the SHRC, in some cases, in the 1B committee, you're in the majority. So there is this push and pull that happens every year with students, this feeling of, can I get it in? Is it good enough? I would encourage you to put yourself forward in your best light, tell your story. Don't be afraid to be creative, to really get strategic about how it is you'd like to position your research and how it is that you tell your own story about your expertise and what brings you to this project, why you want to dedicate the next 2 years of your life to it. and just continue to make those community and peer connections that can help you through the application process in first, second, third year. Okay, that's it for me. Really interested in hearing your questions, and thanks so much for listening.
Great, thank you so much, Laurel. So we have approximately 10 minutes for a joint Q&A question between Clara and Laurel. So attendees are welcome to pose their questions directly to our student panelists. We ask, just to avoid confusion, maybe you direct your questions, or if there is no preferred speaker that you want to answer your question, just open it out to the floor. About the services available at the Faculty of Graduate Studies and York University to support wellness. Thank you, Divya.
Thank you, Judy. Welcome, everyone. So happy to be here and so happy that you're all here. So yes, as Judy introduced me, my name is Divya Balakrishnan, and I am the Graduate Student Counselor in FGS. Next slide, please. So I only have about 10 minutes. I'm going to go through this a bit quickly to respect everyone's time here. So I've been asked to just talk to you all about some quick strategies and then quickly over our service. One thing I want to just start with is that our graduate students, particular PhD students, are incredibly resilient. When you think about all the hurdles, all the challenges that a PhD student had to, move through just to reach this point, to get admissions into very competitive programs, applying for all these very incredibly competitive funding, and so on and so forth. There definitely, I would argue that definitely there is at least a part of this is resilience is playing a key role here. Okay, so in terms of what you already know and what you're already doing for yourself in terms of how to manage stress, your wellness, and so on, we're just going to talk about some strategies to complement that. Okay, so none of this is new. But just in case, there may be one or two things that are a refresher. So very quickly, starting with if you're having negative thoughts, if imposter syndrome is coming up, so a lot of the self-doubt is sort of creeping up, look critically at the evidence of how true that this is, right? And remember that just because you're having a negative thought, maybe experiencing some self-doubt, doesn't mean it's accurate. It doesn't mean that that thought is true. So always looking critically at the thoughts that you're having. Next is, I heard someone else speak about this as well, connecting with your peers. And I can appreciate that it can feel very intimidating sometimes. You all are very competitive and these programs are very competitive. And the culture is such that it is competitive. But if you reach out to peers, you're going to notice that others are going through similar challenges. Imposter syndrome is something very common amongst the graduate student population. And then you'll start to recognize that you're not alone in some of these struggles. Okay. Next is so the very basic things that any student or any individual can do is to maintain and engage in what we call healthy routines. So these are the very basic things that anybody can do and to work from and build on from there. So for example, the first thing is daily movement. So if you look at the research, there's a lot of good studies, good quality studies that have been done in the area of exercise and mental health, right? So you don't have to be training for a marathon, but getting some movement in every day is going to be beneficial, not just to your stress levels and your mental health, but your overall cognitive abilities you're going to see an improvement. Secondly, again, this is a bit of a sensitive point, but I do have to mention it because the research is mounting in this area is diet, right? The benefits of a healthy diet, nutritious diet. There's now research, good quality research coming out on the connection between the brain and the gut, and what we eat does impact our mental health and our stress levels. So you can look into that and the research in that area. And next, as I said, Socializing is important. If you don't feel comfortable connecting with other peers in your program, look outside of your program to connect with other graduate students. You can also obviously connect with people outside of the York University community as well, but building a support network is very important for your mental health and stress management. Again, also quality sleep, right? So sleep is very, very important when it comes to stress management. Mindfulness is also important. I'm going to skip a few of these and not go into detail because we have to be respectful of time here, but also self-compassion. So this is very difficult for graduate students to do, in my experience, but the research does show when we are kinder to ourselves, when on the journey towards things like academic goals, the research does show that one that is kinder to themselves are more likely to not only achieve their goals, but they're less likely to experience things like anxiety, depression, other stressful sort of feelings that can come up. Right. And then last but not least, if you're really struggling, I'm going to encourage you to reach out to a professional. And so let's move on to the next slide, please. And so this is where graduate student wellness services are going to be helpful. So we offer the consultation and counseling service, the certificate in personal wellness, graduate student wellness support group, and the initiative fund. Next slide, please. In terms of the consultation and counseling service, so this is a free, I want to emphasize free, you don't have to pay anything out of pocket, fast, easy to book, confidential service. It's usually a starting place for graduate students seeking to enhance their mental health. We now have same-day appointments, and I'm going to ask you, if you wish to book a session with us, please email us at gradwell@yorku.ca. Next slide, please. We also offer the certificate in personal wellness. So the dates and times are there. If you're interested, I'm going to ask you to fill out the registration form. It is a virtual event. This program is going to focus on, so there's 5 workshops, one each week we're going to be offering, and the workshops focus on how to manage stress better, how to deal with negative thoughts that can come up, like self-doubt thoughts that can come up, and how to deal with really big emotions, right? Like anxiety, like anger, sadness, all these things that graduate students do face when they are working towards their academic goals. Feedback in the past has been very, very positive from our graduate student community who have participated in this program. Next slide, please. Next, we have the Graduate Student Wellness Support Group. So this year, this fall rather, we're doing it a little bit differently. So we're going to be running, so it's going to be a closed group this time. In the past, it's been an open group. This is going to be a closed group. We're going to have 5 sessions or 5 groups where students can join. We're capping it this time at 15 students because otherwise it gets too big. And we're going to be talking about discussing things such as, motivation, how to manage stress, procrastination, how to deal with self-doubt, things like that. It's really student run. The facilitator, the counselor is really just there to help facilitate the group, to make sure it's a safe community. And it's usually a very good, when it's closed, especially, it's always the same people, trust is built, confidentiality is always maintained, people build friendships, and it's usually, we get a wide spread of graduate students from across the university, all the way from, 6-year PhD to first-year master's degree. So there's a lot of wisdom in this group, and a lot of resources and strategies are shared. So the information is there. You do have to fill out a form to register. Next slide, please. And then last but not least, the Graduate Student Wellness Initiative Fund. So this is offered once a year. Students can apply up to $1,500 if they want to fund any sort of initiatives that support the mental health and wellness for our graduate students. So a single student or a graduate student group can apply for this fund. In the past, we have funded events such as a hiking event, a painting event for graduate students. And again, the next deadline is December 5th, so that's coming up in a few months. You do have quite a bit of time to think about that. The information is there to fill out an application. Okay, and so next slide, please. And so again, I'm just going to emphasize, if you want to reach out to us for a session or you have questions, please email us at gradwell@yorku.ca. I'll also mention one last point is that I do have a practicum student, a graduate student from another university coming in the fall, so starting in a couple of weeks actually. She will be available to see students starting in October. She'll be fully under my supervision and training. So she'll also be another person that you can see for sessions if you wish to. And so I will pause there. I just want to wish all of our students here all the very best. And remember, we're all here to support you. We want to see you succeed.
Thank you so much, Divya, for your informative talk. All right. So this is our the contact information for the FGS Scholarships and Awards team. And this concludes our workshop for the day.